Now we would like to begin the International Symposium on Leprosy. Why leprosy now? First, I would like to call upon Mr. Tatsuya Tanami to give introduction to the symposium. Mr. Tanami, please. For now, we would like to begin the symposium in the afternoon. As introduced, Tatsuya Tanami is my name. I myself have had chances to visit many places in the world where leprosy had been eliminated. I visited sanatoriums and colonies and met with many people affected by leprosy to listen to their stories. Through the experience, I learned a lot and came to believe very, very firmly that it is truly important that the current situation of leprosy and the stigma and discrimination attached to leprosy to be widely communicated to the society. And the society must fully realize and address the problem as their own problem. That is my firm belief. As explained, the Nippon Foundation and the Sasakawa Memorial Health Foundation over the past 40 years and more have been engaged in leprosy elimination activities in and outside Japan. And over more than 10 years, recently we've been focusing on the issue of leprosy and discrimination. At the United Nations, we pushed for the adoption of the resolution for elimination of discrimination against persons affected by leprosy. We also support activities led by persons affected by leprosy, which aim to regain their place in the society, restore their dignity and their rights. Also coinciding with the World Leprosy Day, which is the last Sunday of January, we have continued to launch the global appeal to call for an end to the stigma and discrimination attached to leprosy with cooperation from many individuals and groups. This is the 10th global appeal. This time we are joined by the International Council of Nurses as our partner, and together we issued a message from Tokyo this morning. If you've attended the ceremony, you are aware of that. Now, in Japan, unfortunately, there are very limited opportunities for general public to hear or learn about leprosy issue. Thus, people's knowledge is also limited and fragmented. According to the survey on awareness of leprosy that we conducted December last year, we have the results here, in which we learned that 70% of the respondents said they knew about leprosy a little, meaning that they had heard about it but didn't know much. Of course, thanks to the effort by media, there have been reports and communications about the problems faced by persons affected by leprosy, their ways of life, the history of the disease, the history of discrimination, individuals' life stories, creative activities of persons affected by leprosy, their works and accomplishments. And actually, 80% of the respondents said that the leprosy is a disease that faces prejudice and discrimination. Nevertheless, there is hardly any information available in Japan about what is happening outside Japan in reality. There was only 7% who responded that they knew that there are countries that have new cases every year. This shows that the leprosy issue is perceived as not so much of a problem amongst a heap of other problems. However, as you all know, leprosy is not a problem of the past. Even in Japan, we need to reflect upon the past to think about the present situation. We cannot try to settle everything by using the term negative legacy. There are many things that we ought to be doing now and towards future, and we must move quickly to finish our work while the persons affected by leprosy still have their strengths left. Also, in the places where leprosy is yet to be eliminated as a disease, certainly the problem is the current problem. So problem needs to be addressed as a current issue. Under the theme of why leprosy now, we would like to discuss the history of leprosy and leprosy today in Japan, the importance to pass down the history, the current situation of leprosy in the world where more than 200,000 new cases are found every year. And finally, what each of us can do as a member of the society. So this is the aim of this international symposium, to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the global appeal. I hope today will leave its mark on history, and I think it will. We are joined by persons affected by leprosy around the world, and this is a rare and precious opportunity for the persons affected by leprosy to exchange their views amongst themselves as well as with Japanese people. I have this feeling that this encounter will lead to some new developments and movements. First, today we will listen to personal histories of people affected by leprosy, which would be followed by 3 panel discussions. Themes of the panels are respectively leprosy, medical care, and nursing, inclusive, dignified care. Leprosy, a history that must not be forgotten, and leprosy today and tomorrow, how should society respond? Further details of each panel discussion will be provided by respective facilitators, but the first panel focuses on nursing to discuss nursing of leprosy and roles and contributions of nurses. The second panel on history discusses the segregation or isolation policy, ostracism from the community, separation from the family, etc., and how we should pass down such negative history to future generations. The third and final panel is to explore how the persons affected by leprosy and we should address the leprosy issue, and what are the actions required and what are the possibilities for us. I'm afraid that I have taken too much time, but let us begin the symposium. I hope you will stay with us until the end and actively participate in discussions. Thank you for your attention.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much. We shall be sharing the life history of leprosy-affected persons from
Now, we are going to hear from Mr. Bhagavathari Narpasa from Andhra Pradesh in southern India, and Ms. Kimi Yamaguchi from National Sanatorium Tama Zenshoen in Higashimurayama. They will share with us their personal histories looking upon their lives with leprosy and how they overcame the disease. First, I would like to introduce Mr. Narasappa from India. Mr. Narpasa was born in 1968 into a poor farm family in Karnataka, a state in the southwest part of India. He developed leprosy when he was about 9 years old. Villagers demanded Mr. Narsappa to leave the village, and his father accepted the demand by taking him to a leprosarium in the neighboring state of Andhra Pradesh. At the leprosarium, Mr. Nausappa received diagnosis and admitted to the hospital. His father, upon admission, left Nausappa alone and never came back. Already the medical treatment was available, and 2 years later he was discharged from the hospital, but he never went back to his home because he did not know the way back. Later, he arrived at the welfare facility where, for the first time, he was given an opportunity to receive basic education. Furthermore, he received training to become a medical caregiver and began to work as an unpaid nurse's aide for leprosy patients. In the process, he was troubled to witness many persons affected by leprosy were faced with unreasonable discrimination. So he visited all of 84 leprosy colonies in Andhra Pradesh, and in order to improve the situation where persons affected by leprosy had to beg and survive in poor living conditions. In 2004, he founded the SLAP, the Society of Leprosy Affected People of Andhra Pradesh. In 2007, he was chosen as a board member of the National Forum, the national networking organization of colonies to improve living conditions and restoration of rights. In 2012, he was elected chairman of the National Forum, which later changed its name to APAL, Association of People Affected by Leprosy. In 2013, he was awarded by the President of India the best individual working for the cause of persons with disabilities. Mr. Nausappa has two daughters. He hopes that his younger daughter, Meena Rani, will one day be able to join him in campaigning and advocating for the rights and dignity of people with leprosy and becomes a leader of her generation. Now we would like to hear from Mr. Nausappa himself about how he came to dedicate his life for the rights and dignity of persons affected by leprosy and his hopes for future. Mr. Narsappa, please.
స్టార్ట్ అయిందమ్మా. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, let me first greet you in my language, Namaskar and good afternoon. I, Vagavatali Narsappa, the President of Association of People Affected by India, Leprosy. I much appreciate that opportunity of joining you in the Japan for the Global Appeal 2015 to end stigma and discrimination and International Symposium on Leprosy. I would like to thank the Nippon Foundation for making this possible. Let me, as a leprosy affected person, I share my own experiences with you. I thank you in the name of the Association of People Affected by Leprosy and the many thousands of leprosy affected people across our land. As you will know, over of the number of new cases of leprosy reported worldwide occur in India. I come from a remote village in Karnataka state, South India. I was born into a poor family. When I was 9 years old, patches were seen on my body, but were ignored by my parents for lack of awareness of what they might mean. I also noticed that There was no feeling in these patches even picked by pin. However, after consultation, the local government hospital revealed me I have leprosy. It was a huge crisis for my family and for the local community. The village elders declared that I could not be remain in the village. My family was ordered to send me out of the village. I was officially an outcasted. My father took me to a Victoria leprosy rehabilitation home in Nizamabad district, Andhra Pradesh, and left me. The place was completely strange to me. Nobody came to see me. I felt entirely alone during the 2 years treatment. In the process, I lost my fingers. I, I fe- After I was discharged, I don't know how to go, where to go. One of the inmate, Mr. Dasagiri, took me to a Sivananda rehabilitation home, Kukatpalli, Hyderabad. After some days, I tried to go to my home, but my family would not to take back me. This was my moment for the truth rejected by my family. I realized that my true family were other people affected by leprosy. Again, I reached the Sivananda Rehabilitation Home, Andhra Pradesh. My life then changed to the better. I was educated and trained by the home as a medical assistant. I met Nirmala, who came to the Sivananda Rehabilitation Home for the treatment. We got married. My wife and two daughters have since given me a great support and inspired in my work for the rights of people affected by leprosy. Ladies and gentlemen, discrimination comes in the different from form. For me, it started at home with the dislike and hatred in these faces of the friends and village elders. People shut their doors when I was picked down the street. As I was rejected admission at government school, my schooling was done privately in the rehabilitation home. But I had humiliating experience when I went to the government school to take my examination. I was made to take exam sitting outside in the hot sun. I felt both heat and discrimination. I soon recognized that people faced discrimination, but could not get their voice heard. I traveled across the state to find about the medical services provided in the leprosy colonies. I began to understand the needs of the people affected living in these colonies. For the education, suitable livelihood, and basic infrastructure, some were denied ownership of land, some children were refused admission to schools. In the in the year of 2004, organized a small rally with the nearly 200 affected persons in some district, Andhra Pradesh. Mother Teresa statue to Mahatma Gandhi statue in Secunderabad. Associate with NPDO and ActionAid organizations. This is my first step. I decided to do something to change in this situation. So I started the Society of Leprosy Affected Persons, involving the more than 20,000 people in the more than 90 leprosy colonies in Andhra Pradesh. With the support of my friends among the leprosy affected people, it was the first platform in the state and to fight for the rights and people affected by leprosy. In the 2006, With the legal assistance from the Human Rights Law Network and the Human Rights Network of the Lawyers, a petition seeking in medical services people living in the leprosy colonies. I was filed the High Court of Andhra Pradesh. The judge was an interim order for the government to provide medical services and submit details of the service provided. Further, the processes are in the process. In 2007, a great march was organized with the more than 6,000 leprosy affected people demonstrating and demanding their rights. The fact was evident, a political leaders began to sit up and they take to notice. In 2007, I met uh, Honorable Chief Minister Sri Nara Chandrababu Naidu, submitted the basic needs of the colony, and Honorable Parliamentary Petition Commission of Chairman of Sri Venkaya Naidu ji visited in leprosy colonies in Andhra Pradesh. In 2011, I met Human Rights Commission Sri Kakamanu Pedaper Reddy regarding the human rights issues with the Mr. Sasakawa and SLAB team, and they met Sri Honorable Sri Pitani Satyanarayana, Minister of Social Welfare. In the 2012, agitation for the Nalgonda District Collectorate Office for the basic needs of the social entitlements. The Global Appeal 2012, endorsed by the members of the World Medical Association in the National Appeal, was held by the Association of People Affected by Leprosy, APAL, released in the different states in local languages. All these has been held to create national and local interested our cause. National Appeal for the India, which will be help to create an awareness to end stigma and discrimination towards the people affected by leprosy, and also emphasize the need for the early diagnosis and treatment for the new patients. Myself participate in the Global Appeal released International Bar Association at London. I, contacted by the International Bar Association, London, held on 24th January 2013. The government of the India has facilitated a national award for the best individual working cause of the persons affected by leprosy disability, Excellency Sri Pranab Mukherjee, President of India. There are now organizations similar to SLAP in the 20 states in India. These have been mobilized by the Association of People Affected by Leprosy, APAL. And we are grateful to Sasakawaji for the facilitating these formation of the Association of People Affected by Leprosy, APAL, chaired by Dr. P.K. Gopal. Attend ICC International Crime Council International Human Rights Conference at Geneva and explained the activity of human rights and stigma discrimination held on 7th May 2013. Thailand visit. July 13, attend the Thailand for the International Leprosy Summit, overcoming of the remaining challenges conducted by WHO and the Nippon Foundation, and 16 countries are actively participated in this conference. In 2014, I received a Seva Yagya Award. 2014 from Gandhi Smriti Darshan. I attend the leprosy post exposure prophylaxis infection workshop held at ELM Hotel Surabaya, Indonesia. It was organized by the Netherlands Leprosy Relief. Dr. Wim van Brakel explained the importance of the workshop towards the new approach for leprosy control program. Our ultimate aim, ladies and gentlemen, for our country, India, and the wider community is worldwide with the no leprosy and no stigma discrimination against the people affected by leprosy. My heartfelt thanks to Sri Yoi Sasakawa and the Nippon Foundation, a team, and those who are supporting of ILEP agencies, NGOs, and Government of India. Thank you for your patience, understanding the supporting today. Thank you. Yeah, just some photographs are there. We can show that. పోదాం ఇంకా పెట్టిరా వాళ్ళు చెప్తారు కదమ్మా నీకు చెప్పు చదువు చదువుతావా నువ్వు చదువు అప్పుడు నేను పోతా చదువుతా
My first step organized rally from Mother Teresa statue to Mahatma Gandhi statue, Secunderabad, for basic needs of AAY ration card, enhance of pension and medical care. Participated 4 district, 200 above affected persons. This is a photograph of the ex-Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Sri Chandrababu Naidu. This is a discussion with Nalgonda District Magistrate Collectorate regarding stop the pension for disabled persons. The leprosy colony inmates from different parts of Andhra Pradesh joining the Great March at Hyderabad. 6,000 leprosy affected people representing in 82 leprosy colonies at Indira Park. After rally, conducting the meeting with Parliament member and other leaders at Indira Park, Hyderabad. Participated in 17th International Leprosy Congress at Hyderabad. Honorable Parliament Petition Commission Chairman Sri Venkaiah Naidu ji visited leprosy colony at Andhra Pradesh. Met Human Rights Commission Sri K.P.P. Reddy regarding human rights cases with Mr. Sasakawa and SLAP team. Met Sri Honorable Sri Pitani Satyanarayana, Minister of Social Welfare. Dharna at Nalgonda District Magistrate for basic needs. Present the Global Appeal 2013 at International Bar Association, London. Receiving National Award from His Excellency Sri Pranab Mukherjee, President of India, for the Best Individual Working Cause of Disability Person. The International Symposium Summit at Thailand. Receiving Seva Yagya Award 2014 from Gandhi Smriti and Darshan Smriti. His Holiness Dalai Lama blessed Narsappa. Thank you.
Thank
you very much. Now we would like to listen to Ms. Kimi Yamauchi. Ms. Kimi Yamauchi is originally from Shizuoka and is now 80 years old. She came to develop symptoms of leprosy during the upper grades of the primary school, and in 1957, when she was 22 years old, she was diagnosed with leprosy and admitted to Tama Zenshoin. In the following year, she got married to Saddam, who was a resident of Tama Zenshoin, but they were not allowed to have children in the sanatorium. Ever since, for nearly 60 long years to date, she has lived bravely, not yielding to numerous difficulties, but always looking ahead. At the age of 66 in 2001, she adopted a girl, and 10 years later had her first grandchild. Ms. Yamauchi had always wanted to live outside the sanatorium in the society, and finally left Zenshoen to live in a condominium for 6.5 years from 2005. Sadamu, her husband, was not able to leave Zenshoen due to his health condition. In January 2011, Sadamu, who had always been a supporter of her life in the society, died of an illness, and her own health became unstable, which resulted her return to Zenshoen. After she returned, she stays very active. Once a week, she enjoys seeing children in the Hanasaki Nursery School, which was opened in the premises of Zenshoen in 2012. She also learned to use personal computer after she became 70 years old and keeps a diary. She makes and sends Japanese haiku and 5-line poems to a poetry magazine. She has published 2 books, and soon the third, a new photo book, will be published. Today, she has graciously accepted our invitation as she wishes to tell her gratitude for all the people who had supported her throughout her life. Now, Ms. Kime Yamauchi, the podium is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for such a kind introduction. My name is Kimie Yamauchi. Well, I am quite nervous standing up here talking in front of you, but let me try my best and speak to you. Now, I am 80 years old now, but today is actually the day my husband passed away. And therefore, I would say that this is the day that my husband up in heaven is telling me to do your best, speaking up here on the podium. Now, I have been experiencing stigma and discrimination while I was living in sanatorium, and I was always committed myself to fight against those. And that has been my life. But then I myself although married to my husband, I was not able to have a baby. However, now, since I have a daughter, therefore, I have a child, and I now have a grandchild as well. And I would say that this life is something ordinary, taken for granted amongst unhealthy, ordinary people. However, for the leprosy affected people, this was not something normal. We have to fight for this kind of life. There were many people who had left this sanatorium and left this world. However, I think I am given all the spirit from these people who's now away from this world, giving me the strength to fight against this life. Now, the village I grew up was a very small village. But as far as my memory goes, there were 8 leprosy patients from 4 different families. Now, back then, the situation was quite difficult. If someone thought that there's something wrong with the child from this and such family, then people tend to look at us differently. Now, myself, my brother and sister actually had to be taken to a sanatorium. But once this family have a leprosy child, then the rest of the villagers would segregate us, and therefore they had to live on their own. Therefore, my parents must have gone through such a painful times at the time. I was 5-year-old and I had a 7-year-old sister. And my parents, I'm sure, must have experienced a lot of difficulties at the time and supported ourselves, our children, their children, in order to live our life. And many people around us have said we're dirty. If you go close to us, they get infected by leprosy. But I thought that there are much more difficult diseases that exist around the world. And after a while, there were a lot of children who was infected of leprosy and came to the sanatorium. But then these people have left from the village one after another. And then the adults at that time have told me that this and such child from this family had to leave the village. And that's why we were being explained. And what happened back then, that we were sprinkled of the sterilization at the time to houses and all the places that we have went. And many people thought that you have to go through that, otherwise you would never get overcome of this disease, meaning that once you get leprosy, you were not able to go back to their family home. And that was my understanding at the time when I was 5 years old. When I became a first grader, that was the time when Japan went into war, meaning that there were no food, there was no nothing around. And there were many children who were not given sufficient nutrition. And when I was in grade school, we've had to go through the health checkup. And there was this symptom on the skin right behind my ears. And doctor told me whether it's painful or itchy. And I said, it's nothing wrong with that. And then, since then, I did not know that I had illness at the time. However, I had to live the rest of my life, meaning that it was right in the midst of the war. Therefore, we had nothing else to be able to access to. Therefore, there were no food and there was nothing that would given to us. But I actually did my best because we did not want to lose this battle. But then I was not able to do so beyond when I became sixth grader. We had to dig underground in order to be ready for the bomb to come. And I was not able to even hold an arrow in order to fight with some people. And some people criticized me that if I were a guy, I could have contributed to win for the battle for the Japanese citizen. However, since I was a girl, I was not able to contribute that way. And we've been bullied. And my father have actually tried to fight against this bully towards me. But then the rest of the people have said, because of the misconduct of my father, your daughter has been infected of this disease. Therefore, I was such a small child at that time, but I was never being accepted as a human being. But the more people bullied on me, I became stronger and stronger. I was committed that I would never going to lose this battle with the people who know nothing about this disease. And it was during the war, therefore, people had to live at their fullest every single day. And now the war had ended, and our niece and nephews have come back from their duty in the military. And then that was the time I was taken to the Red Cross hospital. And then I was given the diagnosis of arthritis problem, meaning that my limbs were paralyzed. And there was some pain here and there in my joints. But we were poor, therefore I was not able to be treated fully. And then I became the age 22. And my mother was the person who told me always that you have to take care of yourself. And that was the education of my mother. And I started working for a clothing store in order to sell clothes to sell at the store. However, my limbs were paralyzed, therefore I was not able to control my arms, but I was able to sew a suit for myself. But then all of a sudden, this company told me that you don't have to come from tomorrow to work. I did not know why that had happened, but then I had to spend several years back home because I've lost the job. And one time, someone came to us and said, your children, the family of mine, the children there has a leprosy. And that someone have told this company that I had worked for. Therefore, this company had told me that I don't have to come from the next day. But one time, I had something wrong on my skin on my face. And when I was drinking this hot soup, I got my mouth burnt. And then my sister have started to wonder, why did you develop this burn? Because that's not normal. And then she started to think that I may have developed some sort of disease. And then gradually, the neighborhood started to pass the rumor saying that she, which is me, must have been caught or infected of leprosy. And there was this clinic close by, and I went to the clinic to ask him to see my symptoms. And this doctor have told me that I don't think you have the disease anymore, but you've been loved by your family all these years, so just stay home. But then my sister, for example, or a child of my brother, those people were also being seen the same, meaning that they were seen from the neighbors with prejudice and also discrimination. I did not mind whatever painful life that I would go through. However, my family and my relatives had to experience the same painful discrimination. Therefore, I decided to leave my family and go to the sanatorium called Zenshoen. And you have some physical a problem, but you have lived with your family all the way through, but there is no leprosy patient from your family. And this teacher from this person from sanatorium have said that you can go back home to your family. And so was my brother. So I was perplexed as to what I should do. Since I am diagnosed as leprosy, I told this person from this sanatorium said that I want to live with the people with the similar disease. And that's how I've started to live in this sanatorium, Zenshoen. And then I had a chance to get married, but I wondered whether I am qualified to get married, because leprosy patients, even if they're married, had to leave their wife or their husbands, or they had to leave their children and had to live quietly in sanatorium. Therefore, I was wondering whether I have the right to get married. And if I get married to a husband, I was wondering whether I would be a good wife. But then when I got married, there was this very difficult time that my husband had to go through, which is to take the vasectomy surgery. He was not in a physical strength state at the time. due to the disease. However, I told this person from the sanatorium and said that I want to get married to this man. But then once he had to go through the vasectomy surgery, he said that if he is not able to marry to me unless he takes the vasectomy surgery, then he said that's the only way for him to do. So that's how we took the surgery and we got married. And our objective once we got married was to become part of the society. We are only experiencing some influence from this disease. However, we were able to become part of the family for sure. I was on my wheelchair, but there were many other people who lived their life in the society on wheelchair. However, why can't the leprosy-affected patient not able to do the same? Likewise, the other people affected by different diseases. Therefore, we tried our best to be part of a society. However, if you stay in Zenshouen, the sanatorium, it was quite comfortable. And if we tried to go out from there into the society, there was a huge, tall wall in front of us. And we needed a tremendous encouragement and our effort in order to overcome that. And also, the workers. Well, once we have started to work in some company, the company worried about hiring the leprosy-affected people. We only had some after effects as a result from this disease. However, they refused to hire us. People talk about the human dignity, but I thought that there's no human dignity that surrounds us. But we had no other choice but to stay in this sanatorium. But when I became 70-year-old, for some reason I thought that we should challenge once again. But then my husband said, I'm already old, and I have multiple illnesses that I am suffering from. Therefore, I just cannot fight for that. But then he said, you have that strength and power to do so. So he told me that you would be able to do so, and I'm sure that I would be able to succeed in becoming part of the society. So my husband encouraged me to do so. I thought I was quite happy having my husband. Therefore, I have taken those words from my husband and started to fight with all the views that I was being exposed to that surrounds me. And then I decided to use the PCs and started to find condominiums. When I go to a real estate agency, they said, what, you're 70-year-olds and you are leprosy-affected people? Is there anyone who would look after you? And I said, yes, I have 2 people. And then I asked this person, can we not rent your apartment? And then the landlord said, I'm looking for someone to live in this apartment. But then this landlord said, but not to the leprosy-affected people. So I got really angry. I got really mad. I am this old, and I'm looking for help. And this landlord did never want to give hands to me. So I expressed my anger, and once again, this opportunity gave me another encouragement and strength in order to fight against those discrimination. And there was this one person who emerged who said who would support me because I myself alone was helpless at the time. And I told this person that I want to become a member of the society, but no one is renting a home to me. The government have apologized on all the misconduct towards the leprosy patients of the past. However, even so, the society did not allow us to be part of that. The isolation, the segregation policy still existed, and therefore I felt that the stigma, discrimination, and the prejudice still existed in the society. And within a week or so, this woman who supported me have came to me and said, I think you can find the room now. And then it was 300 meters or so away from this sanatorium that I can easily visit my husband. And it was the second floor of this condominium. And I told my husband, now we have a little castle for both of us. We are now going to be able to live outside from the sanatorium. We can take a bath and be able to cook for you. And I was so happy, and I told that to my husband. This was what our hope was, and this was the objective of getting married. And then for 6.5 years, I've started to living in that condominium. And my husband, when his health situation is good, he came to the condominium and spent time together. And he truly said that this is the life that we were looking for. Even if you're old, even if you or have the disabilities, we can still live this kind of life together. And I was so happy and wanted this time to last forever. And there were some helpers supported us doing some grocery shopping. And together with these people, we've started to be more and more proactive, telling people around us to get the correct understanding and knowledge about leprosy. And gradually, 3 people increased to 5 people, and all these different people have started to get together and tried their best to understand what I was going through, and also visited to various sanatoriums, meeting with leprosy-affected people living there in those sanatoriums. And one day, there was this, I met with this 90-year-old man in the sanatorium. And he said, I used to have the leprosy, but leprosy is a past history. You can talk to many people, to whoever you want to. Although many people may have pointed finger at you saying you have leprosy, but it's no longer in that generation today. And he originally was a doctor for a military group. And what he did was, as the war started to end, he had to run away and escape from captured in the mountains. And one day there was 2 people from this troop who was obvious to be the leprosy. And then what happened at the time was he was blinded and had to dig a hole and then had to embed these people alive. So the doctor from the troop actually have proudly said of those misconduct that he did back then, right after the war. And when I tried to pick up the coffee cup with my both hands, his eyes were staring at my hands. But I told him that I am still a human being, even if my hands are like this. I can still drink tea and I can still drink coffee. I am still a living human being today. And so I have retorted back to this person and said that we are still the ordinary person. And then by the time I was to leave this place, he brought this umbrella because it was raining outside. But then he actually have put the umbrella up and took me to the bus station close by. So he abided in to the meeting that I had with him. He was a doctor. But even so, the doctor did all these different wrong things back then. But he now have finally understood that I was a human being, no different from him. So I did not go through an education. Therefore, I couldn't read the letters. However, this was the experience that gave me power by living through my life. So I did experience painful times as a result from such stigma and prejudice. But I would like to explain to you on all these different experiences that I had, and thank you all very much for listening. Thank you very much for your talk.
ありがとうございました。これよりパネルディ
Thank you very much. Now we would like to begin the panel discussion 1, Leprosy, Medical Care and Nursing, Inclusive Dignified Care. Thank you for your patience. We need to arrange the stage for the panel discussion.
それではパネリストの皆様、ファシリテーターの方はどうぞご登壇くださいませ。
Now, may I ask the facilitator of the panel discussion and panelists to come up to the stage?
「それではお待たせいたしました。
Thank you very much for waiting. I would like to introduce you the panelists. Dr. Nobuko Yamaguchi, Assistant Professor of Department of Nursing, School Health and Social Services, Saitama Prefecture, University, Japan. Ms. Christy Elaine Ibardaloza, she's a nurse from Kulion Sanatorium and General Hospital, the Philippines. And Ms. Chiemi Fujisawa, Director General of Nursing Department, National Sanatorium Tama Zenshoen in Japan. Mr. Dilip Kumar, President of Indian Nursing Council, India. The facilitator of this panel is Dr. Etsuko Kita. She's the chairperson of Sasakawa Memorial Health Foundation. Dr. Kita, please. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Etsuko Kita. I am originally a pediatrician, but I witnessed the power of nursing in the international setting So I came to involve myself in nursing education. Year before last, I joined Sasakawa Memorial Health Foundation and then came to get involved in a leprosy issue. So our counterpart today is the nurses for the 10th Global Appeal 2015. As a member of the organization, as a member of the organizer, it is my honor to be a facilitator of this panel. We have just heard the touching life stories of the two speakers just now. So in the first panel discussion, we would like to shed a light on the nurses who are very close to the leprosy affected people. We have four presenters. I would like to first give you a brief explanation about this discussion.
ですね、はい、どうぞ、はい。ですね、まあ、この
The title of the symposium or the panel discussion is the leprosy medical care and nursing inclusive dignified care. Japan, the Philippines, and India are the countries involved in this panel discussion. So health, what is the definition of health? Probably many of you know. In the WHO, we say health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. In terms of illness, the leprosy can be cured and controlled physically. However, the social issue still remains. And in developing countries, there still are the patients living with leprosy. So the latest status is available on the Nippon Foundation website. So in 1980s, there are more than 5 million cases, but through MDT, multi-drug therapy, many of them were cured very quickly. The 1994, Mr. Sasagawa took initiative to provide treatment free of charge, which drastically lowered the number, and the Novartis continues to provide free treatment, but we still have 250,000 patients. This is the map which was shown in the morning. In terms of WHO standard, Brazil is the only one country which has the public health problem in terms of leprosy. The current new cases stands at 200 to 250,000 cases per year, and we would like to explore remaining issues around leprosy with the panelists. So first, I would like to ask Ms. Christine Lane Ibardaloza to talk about the Philippines situation, and Dr. Yamaguchi to talk about Japanese situation, and Dr. Kumar to talk about India. Sorry, the Ms. Chiemi Fujisawa is going to talk about Japanese situation, and Dr. Yamaguchi is to summarize the presentations. So the first speaker is Ms. Christy Lane Ibardaloza. You can find their background in the program, so I will not explain their background in details.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am Cristilane Ibardalosa from Culion, Philippines. This afternoon, I will be discussing and prepared the PowerPoint presentation about the rules of the nurses in leprosy management, which includes community education in diagnosis and treatment, rehabilitation, and hospital or custodial care. The nurses are conducting community education to promote learning or information dissemination. It is one of the roles of the nurse to have people in the community, particularly the endemic communities, to improve knowledge, awareness, and practices about leprosy, to improve early case detection, and to prevent further complications. Nurses assist in the diagnosis of patient either by diagnosing the patient and or referring to leprosy clinic. One of the most important functions of the nurse is to make sure on patient to take his MDT drug regularly to be cured. Patients are motivated and assisted to finish prescribed MDT regimen. In rehabilitations of leprosy in physical, social, and economics, health workers play an advocacy role to ensure that those affected by leprosy have access to health services. Complications of leprosy which include muscle weakness and deformity of the hand. It often leads to formation of contractures and fixed deformity. Daily therapy of the hand helps to preserve and prevent contractures and deformity. Ulceration or wounds in the foot needs daily wound cleaning and dressing to prevent infections, and giving prosthetics for some complications necessitating to amputation. And to make them happy, organizing socialization, gathering for the people affected by leprosy, such as Christmas party and birthday party, lessen the feeling of loneliness and discrimination and segregation. Due of disability, discrimination, and the disease itself, the leprosy patient has a difficulty in seeking a job or cannot find a job. Giving them a livelihood is very crucial to support their daily needs. Nurses play a major role in taking care of people affected by leprosy in hospital for custodial or palliative care. Most of the leprosy patients were abandoned by their own family and living alone. Nurses are the one who taking care and loving them in a way of giving them a proper medication, keeping the patient clean, bathing the patient, feeding the patient, wound cleaning and dressing, listening in comforting them in their sufferings, and assisting on their daily activities. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for telling us what you do in the Philippines. Let's go to Japan, where the situation may be very different from that of the Philippines. Thank you for this. In Japan, what are we doing and this was the Meiji area. We had a policy put in place, and that over the 90 years until that segregation law was stopped, they have suffered from segregation and discrimination. 1907, this policy has made people segregate. At that time, 12,270 in 1945 after MDT, and after that there has been decreasing number of patients. Because of the segregation policy, there were elderly in 1,840 people died. Oh, sorry. And today we have 1,750 people because many people have died in the old age. Average age is 83.3 years old, so it is a very highly elderly facilities. What are the differences? That because of the long segregation and the sterilization of men, and it is over 100 years since the first policy. The problem today is that the average age, 83.3, the aging is the major problem. And Tama is 103-year-old. He has been, some of them have lived there for 80 years. And if you look at the distribution, 87% are over 75 years old and 51% over 85. And there are dementia is becoming a major problem. And the second is very different. Very few families do come and have communicated. Most people do not come to see them. Even if they are dead, they will not be able taken up by the families. 2,650 boxes with bones are kept at these facilities. Many of them are living alone. And because of the aging of the situation, what we would need is a very varied and deep nursing. This is the Tama Zenshoen facility. It is 8 times the Tokyo Dome in terms of expense. This is the general place where independent, autonomous people live in this. At times, 1,000 people used to live in these facilities. Today, only 75. And these are people who need to be cared. So many people end their lives in that facility. Those people who need nursing and bathing and everyday life has to be supported. And all sorts of recreation activities are provided so that they can have better life because of dementia. And the care of the extremities, hands and feet, are very important. And we have special facilities and special things to help them use their legs. And mission of Tama is that everybody can live a fulfilled life as much as possible, that they feel peaceful. And the mission of the nursing department, that each one must be aware of its role and to provide reliable nursing so that they feel comfortable. And that is the principle. And we have a summer festival and an autumn festival. We invite local residents to join us so that Tama facilities can be open to ordinary people and the society. The people who live there say they have not many days left for them. That's true. And the end is very near for each one. We need to support each person to the end of their lives so that they can feel, I'm glad I have lived this long. We have to provide a fulfilling end of life care. And we feel that that is a big mission for each one of us. There will be cherry blossom season. This is what you see in the Tama facilities. And for the people there and for the nurses to have a party under the cherry blossom tree is what we look forward very much to. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございました。先ほどのフィリピンとかなり
Well, thank you very much. I think it's quite different from the situation from the Philippines. So then next, what I would like to do is to ask the presentation from the panelists from India, talking more about education.
You press this and PowerPoint mode. Yes.
Namaste. Good afternoon. I am just going to share with you about the situation and also about the nursing education in India. The national health policy, the government of India sets the goal of elimination of leprosy, that is to reduce the number of cases to less than 1 per 10,000 population by the year 2005. The National Leprosy Eradication Program took up the challenge with the active support of the states, union territory governments, and dedicated partners in the World Health Organization, the International Federation of Anti-Leprosy Association, the Sasakawa Memorial Health Foundation, and the Nippon Foundation, and now it is and DENLAP, and the World Bank. As a result of the hard work and meticulously planned and executed activities, the country achieved the goal of elimination of leprosy as a public health problem, defined as less than 1 case per 10,000 population. At the national level, in the month of December 2005, as on 31st December 2005, the prevalence rate recorded in the country was 0.95 per 10,000 population. A total of 1.27 lakh new cases were detected during the year 2013 and 14, which gives annual new case detection rate that is 9.98 per 100,000 population. This shows the decrease of the ANCDR by 7.4% from 2012, that is 10.78. A total of 86,000 cases are on record as on 1st April 2014, giving a prevalence rate of 0.68 per 10,000 population. This shows the decrease in prevalence rate by 12.8% from 2012 to 2013. The National Leprosy Eradication Program was decentralized to the state governments, districts, and the leprosy services were integrated with the general healthcare delivery system from 2001 to 2002 onwards. This helped in reduction of stigma and discrimination against persons affected with leprosy to a great extent. The activities under the National Leprosy Program, that is early detection of leprosy cases, where our auxiliary nurse midwives working in the rural area also actively take part in this process. The intensified health education and public health awareness campaigns, where our rural area, where our sub-centers, our auxiliary nurse midwives are taking part in this activity. The regular treatment of leprosy cases, providing the multi-drug therapy at fixed centers near the closer to the patients. Disability prevention and medical rehabilitation is one of the main activities of the program. The nurses are the frontline health workers, health workforce to provide the whole healthcare delivery system, including the leprosy. And this is the nursing education system. We have at the front level auxiliary nurse midwives, and then the general nursing and midwifery program, the basic BSc, and the post basic BSc, and the MSc nursing program. Besides this, we have also MPhil in nursing and PhD nursing program, and post-basic specialty diploma courses are awarded for various courses in the specialty area. We have in India about auxiliary nurse midwives 1,938 institutions with a capacity of 54,000, and we have general nursing and midwifery programs with 2,968, and about 118,000 is the capacity. And there were a BSc nursing program with 1,700 nursing education institutions, and the MSc nursing program with 582 institutions are providing the courses. As on today, we have about 1.67 million registered nurses are there, and 0.75 the auxiliary nurse midwives. But this figure is the cumulative figure from 1947 to date. So it is estimated that only 40% of the nurses are active out of these registered nurses. And a process has been started to have a live register, and within a 10 to 12 months, each nurse will be given a unique identity card. Through the process of nursing census, we will be able to get actual number of nurses are functioning in India. The curriculum of all the curriculum which is for the nursing programs, these following components have been included in the existing nursing program, like the National Leprosy Elimination Program, stigma, discrimination, treatment, care and support, and disability prevention, counseling the patients and the family. These are the core components which are taught to the nurses during the training program. The way forward is, in the Indian Nursing Council has taken the following decision, that to provide the continuing education program for the nursing personnel in the leprosy program, and the process has been started for preparation of modules for nurses, and these modules are going to contain about the leprosy program, early diagnosis and prompt MDT, stigma, discrimination, treatment, care and support, disability prevention, counseling the patient and patient family, IEC, information and education and communication activities in the community, to improve self-reporting to the primary health center and also at the community health center. The duration of the program is going to be 3 days, and this will also be initiated in the form of e-learning format, so that this will be given as a weightage for renewal of nurses, so that large number of nurses can have an access for undergoing this program, so that wherever they are working, they will be able to contribute for the National Leprosy Program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. では
So now from here, we have gotten the presentation from Philippines, Japan, and India. Therefore, next, we would like to ask Ms. Yamaguchi, who's also been active at Nepal for the elimination of leprosy, to also share her views.
埼玉県立大学の山口と申します。よろしくお願いいたします。ハンセン病
My name is Yamaguchi from Saitama University. Permeation of MDT lowered prevalence. However, 200,000 new cases are every year detected. The issue here is that amongst new cases, there are people, more than 10,000 patients who have visible symptoms, meaning that it took them a long time to be diagnosed with a disease, because the patient, him or herself or family, did not have enough knowledge or information, or they did not have access to the medical clinic because they were afraid of the prejudice in the society. So even though they were aware of the symptoms, they were not able to go to the medical clinic. In many countries, leprosy healthcare is part of the regional healthcare service. If the number of patients continues to decline, maybe the medical clinics or medical centers that are appropriate for providing treatment to leprosy may also decline. So in order to continue to provide sufficient care, we need to develop human resources. We also need to secure the healthcare facility to care for those leprosy-affected people. So the people living with leprosy have different backgrounds. In Japan, we are seeing the trend of aging faced with end-of-life care issue, or there are some new cases of young children below 14 years old in some cases. Also, even in Japan, maybe for non-Japanese nationals may develop the symptoms in Japan. Whatever the background of the people living with leprosy, the common issue they have is discrimination and prejudice they face in the society. They cannot find job or they are fired because of the disease, and they find it very difficult to return to the society once they are affected with leprosy. The leprosy affected people and family have various issues which need to be understood holistically. This is the health problem of the leprosy affected people and family, which has four aspects: physical, social, spiritual, and mental aspects. Those are the very important aspects in terms of providing care to the leprosy affected people. The suffering of the disease impact their day-to-day life. Leprosy affected people tend to get depressed quite easily, and their QOL tends to be lower, according to some researches. And also, the family members tend to develop mental problems, and they also suffer low quality of life as well. Nurses need to support patient leprosy affected people and families in terms of whether their living conditions are appropriate or not. Different countries have different environment for leprosy affected people, but in terms of dignified care, there are certain common issues. First, we need to minimize the physical disabilities and provide the environment where leprosy affected people can live a normal life as a healthy person. Therefore, self-care agency must be developed. So self-care agency includes capability to acquire information, the capability to make decisions. So it's a comprehensive capability for self-care. The next is the support for resilience. Human beings, when faced with diseases and disasters or any other traumatic events, they suffer, but they can adapt to the situation, given situation. So human beings are equipped with resilience. Leprosy-affected people's resilience must be enhanced. We also need to eliminate the prejudice and discrimination in the society, but we also have to support the enhancement of resilience amongst the leprosy-affected people. And that's one of the important roles of nurses. Nurses have to find the positive aspects of the leprosy-affected people. In order to do that, you need to develop a good relationship. leprosy-affected people or people living with leprosy are considered as vulnerable people in the society. However, if you perceive them as a vulnerable people, you cannot improve their resilience. Everyone has his her own strengths. It could be mental strengths, it could be support from the family members or friends, or someone maybe excels in a certain area of ability. So we need to identify strengths of each and every leprosy affected people to encourage the development of resiliency. Leprosy affected people have their own lifestyles. Health professionals need to think about their future lives in providing care to them. Leprosy affected people and medical professionals must share the same goals, nurture partnership in order to develop the care with dignity. So you need to understand what is the purpose of leprosy affected people's life. It's there to decide. It's not the nurse's job to decide what they should do in their lives. So the presence of the patients or leprosy affected people must be respected in order to improve quality of life. How they would like to end their life, the quality of death will eventually be developed by providing such care. The medical care is not all about nursing. You need a medical doctor, social workers to complete the comprehensive care. And as a team, under the same and common goals, leprosy-affected people and medical team must work together to overcome leprosy-related issues. The leprosy nursing, it is said, is the basics of nursing. But in some countries, if nurses are working at the leprosarium, sometimes nurses themselves face discrimination. They find it difficult to get married. So the social positioning of nurses is another issue that we need to shed light on. But at any rate, they work with the leprosy-affected people, and I have a great esteem, great respect towards those nurses.
4方の発表を終えまして、少し時間がございますので、質疑をやらせていただきたいと思います。本来ならばプレゼンターの間で意見交換をして、それからフロアに振るべきかと思いますが、時間が限られていますので、フロアの方のもしご意見、質問があればぜひ手を挙げていただきたい。
Sorry. This is we have time for questions and answers, and the floor is open. Who would like to start asking questions? Do you have any questions or comments? Yes, I see a hand out there.
Yes, I'm Marie Staunton from the International Federation of Anti-Leprosy Organizations, and we work with 500,000 people affected by leprosy in 63 countries around the world, spend about 60 million a year working with people. And first, can I just say how inspiring it is for somebody from overseas to see the support for anti-leprosy work there is here. It's been a really inspiring day. And my question is to ask you as nurses, and I think the last speakers referred to it, how do we keep the education of nurses, the awareness of leprosy going, particularly in countries where there are fewer cases of leprosy? Because we're finding that people can spend 2 or 3 years not being diagnosed with leprosy because among health workers, some of that knowledge is starting to go. So do you have any advice for us as to how we can support health workers to keep knowledge about leprosy going and therefore help with diagnosis? Thank you.
That was a big theme of a question. Would anybody on the panel, from your own experience, like to respond to that or react to that? Dr. Yamaguchi? Thank you very much for that question. The education of nurses and how can we teach nurses the issues of leprosy. In Japan, to start with, we have very few new patients every year. So in classroom teaching, we hardly touch on the leprosy or Hansen. But in our university, since we are choosing medical issues, not just the nurses, but the operational nurses and other area of nursing, we have students. So we talk about stigma and disease. So leprosy will be involved in that, disabilities and disease. So how do we go about doing this? It may be mental, or it can be HIV, and Ebola, of course. And these contamination sicknesses, how do we as medical staff deal with those situations that's prevalent today? So we do have opportunities of teaching students those subjects. And I have been to Tama facilities. We listen to what the people there have to say and help the nurses accept the people as they are and what they want. And the students, we teach them to be ready to listen to them. I don't know if this was the answer.
I think one of the point which I focused on about the continuing education for the nursing personnel, so that they are updated with the latest trends and the knowledge, and also during the period of the program, the students are taken to the units where they were exposed for the, so that is one way of keeping abreast with the, including in the as a policy for the continuing education of nursing personnel, that will facilitate to have the updated with the latest knowledge.
My name is Hirasawa. And 20 years ago, this museum was built, and I was dedicated to nursing. And there were many nurses who visited the museum. And due to the change in the educational program, so some of the universities do teach, but Dr. Yamauchi's place, your university, and we created with Dr. Kitagawa, and we used to visit your university, but nowadays we are not going to your university now. But because the leprosy issue is no longer a major issue now, not just have the students understand what nursing Hansen disease is, what does it mean to be a Hansen patient? What does it mean for a human person to live And we feel that that should be the part of the nursing education, but unfortunately, that is not so. So I hope going forward, you would increase that in the nursing education. That's my plea. Thank you very much. Do you have a comment? There are many questions.
Konnichiwa. My name is Jose Ramirez. I'm a social worker by training, but I also involuntarily spent 7 years at a leprosarium in the United States. And one of the things that I recall very clearly was that, yes, the medical care was exceptional, but the multidisciplinary services were lacking. I like the fact that the last speaker mentioned the interprofessional concept. And in my training, I know that discharge planning is very, very significant. But I was wondering if the concept of discharge planning is done at Kulion, at the sanitarium in Japan, at the colonies in India. And the concept not necessarily to just discharge a person back to the community, but to allow them to be able to get the emotional, psychological, medical, and spiritual bonding that is so essential. Because after all, most of the persons that have been diagnosed have also been traumatized in cases that equivalent to persons who have gone to war. So I was wondering if any of the organizations, any of the nursing protocol allows for discharge planning where it prepares a person not only while they still remain at the facility, but also in the event that they were to leave, to prepare them to overcome that trauma.
ありがとうございます。ちょっとあと
Thank you very much. We still have two people before you can start to answer. I don't think he's using his microphone.
I would like to congratulate the Global Appeal organizations for recognizing the role of nurses in leprosy control and in providing dignified care for leprosy care. The role of nurses in leprosy are diversified into two components. One is institutional, and the other is public health. Although leprosy has been declining even in endemic countries, we are still seeing new cases of leprosy every year. And the role of nurses, particularly in small countries like in the Pacific, where there are very, very few doctors, and these doctors are more concentrated on hospital care, the more nurses are needed in the finding of new cases and in the implementations of the leprosy program. I'm really concerned on how nurses has to proceed in terms of finding new cases, in terms of providing compliance of MDT treatment. In the Pacific Islands, where I am also involved, we find the role of nurses very significant, where there are no doctors who would diagnose cases. And even diagnoses are done by trained nurses. So the role of nurses becomes amplified in countries or areas where doctors are very, very, very few. So doctors and the nurses not only are involved in institutional care of providing humane treatment under institutions for custodial and palliative care, but even at this point in time, the role of nurses in public health is very, very important.
Please pass the microphone to him.
Terima kasih atas kesempatan yang diberikan. Saya
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Edo Paulus from Indonesia.
Perhimpunan Mandiri Kusta Indonesia atau Permata Indonesia.
インドネシアの
Now, I am from the Association of the Leprosy Affected People.
Saya sangat bergembira karena presentasi dari teman-teman perawat yang begitu brilian bagi saya.
看護婦世界
There are nurses around the world, and I have been exposed to all different presentations. I am so glad to be able to give of this opportunity.
Orang yang pernah mengalami kusta.
でそのハンセン病の
When it comes to leprosy and the affected people, there are some things that caught my attention. Therefore, I would like to ask some of those questions to you.
Bahwa bagaimana teman-teman perawat yang tadi ada beberapa orang panelis yang sudah mempresentasikan, menampilkan dalam kampanye tentang kusta, menampilkan gambar-gambar yang menampilkan orang-orang yang luka-luka yang begitu besar, yang dilihat oleh orang awam itu sangat menakutkan.
Now, earlier in the presentation, there were a lot of photos used, especially the photo of leprosy patients, and I would like to ask the questions on that. For example, in Indonesia,
terhadap kusta.
写真を見せることによって
by showing pictures, it could be a negative impact because society would become more and more fearful towards leprosy, and as a result, these affected people could be discriminated.
Orang dinas kesehatan atau Kementerian Kesehatan supaya menampilkan gambar-gambar yang bagi kami lebih mengangkat martabat dan bisa mempengaruhi orang untuk peduli terhadap kasus kusta dengan gambar-gambar yang lebih baik.
Therefore, keeping that kind of situation in mind, what we do is that we talked to the government so that we should not show the photos of the patient with aggravated symptoms, so that we should show the photos that is less conspicuous in order to overcome this discrimination issue.
Di beberapa negara itu saat mempresentasikan itu, apa respon dari masyarakat saat melihat gambar-gambar tersebut? Terima kasih.
私が聞きたかったのは
So my question is that including Japan and the rest of the world, is there any sort of situation like Indonesia is facing exist by showing those photos, negative implications by showing those photos? So we have another question from the floor, so let's have her ask that question first.
I think, too, we should also remember the role of leprosy-affected people in nursing people affected by the disease, and also as working as paramedical workers. So there's a long history of the people affected by the disease who are doing the coalface work, dressing ulcers, being the ones who are in primary contact with leprosy-affected people. And also, during the elimination campaigns, the role of community workers such as midwives who knew their communities, who went into the homes of families, who helped diagnose and treat, and who were very, very effective in carrying out that work. That's all part of the nursing profession.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Is there another question from this end of the room?
ఇది క్వశ్చన్ కాదండి, జస్ట్ నా ఒక అనుమానం క్లియర్ చేసుకుంటున్నా.
This is not a question, just I have to clarify some things.
ఈ నర్సింగ్ గ్లోబల్ అపీల్ నర్సింగ్ గ్లోబల్ అపీల్ రిలీజ్ చేసినాం కదా, ఇది చాలా సంతోషకరమైన విషయం.
This is a happy thing that we released Global Appeal 2015.
అయితే ఈ నర్సింగ్ గ్లోబల్ అపీల్ నర్సింగ్ ట్రైనింగ్ సెంటర్స్ నర్సింగ్ అనే వాళ్ళు చాలా ముఖ్యంగా ఆరోగ్యంలో పాత్ర పోషిస్తారు.
Nursing people are the people who are very special, who play a very important role in the medical field of the affected persons.
ఈ నర్సింగ్ ట్రైనింగ్ క్రమంలో స్పెషల్ దానికోసం ఒక ప్రత్యేకమైన సబ్జెక్ట్ ఏమైనా ప్రతి దేశంలో ఉందా, లేక ఏ దేశంలో స్పెషల్ ట్రైనింగ్ లెప్రసీ మీద నర్సులకు ఇస్తారు?
Is there any special subject on leprosy in nursing training?
ఒకవేళ ఉంటే ఏ దేశాల్లో ఉన్నాయి, అవి ఏ విధంగా ఇంప్లిమెంట్ చేస్తారో కొంచెం ఏమన్నా కొంచెం తెలిస్తే కొంచెం చెప్పండి.
If yes, and interesting to know how they are implemented.
థ్యాంక్ యూ.
Okay, thank you very much. We have gotten some comments as well as questions. Therefore, let me wrap this up into two major groups. I would say first group was like the question from Indonesia. Usage of photos with disfigurements, for example. He had pointed out that in his country, these photos would create negative implications to public. Second is not only nurses, but then I would say that the medical training or education as a whole, I think that this leprosy issue should be incorporated. However, a long time ago, when the person is being treated at the clinic, the education was on the basis of go to the clinic, you'll get fully cured. However, in case of leprosy, although it is an infectious disease, it's not easy to be fully cured. And it is quite related more strongly with people's life in a daily basis. Therefore, if we think of that kind of characteristics, it would not. It is more to do with the lifestyle-related diseases that has to be taken care of at home and not necessarily always in the hospitals. Therefore, I would like to hear from the panelists of the usage of the photos, plus the education as a whole, not only the nurses, but in the medical field as a whole, and then would like to hear from you of what you think of these perspectives, starting from one by one. Maybe you can start, Christy?
Showing photos of leprosy patient is not discriminating. It's not discriminating because showing photos is one of the way to end the stigma and discrimination against with them. When we show the photos during the community education, we explain what leprosy is. What leprosy is, the
How do you think of nursing education?
During community education, we showing the photos of leprosy patient, especially in the endemic areas, to make them aware what leprosy is, to have idea and knowledge, to improve early case detection and to prevent further complications. So the photos is not showing the discriminating the leprosy patients. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, Ms. Kimura.
With regard to showing the photos, in order to understand the personal history of the leprosy-affected people, I think it is necessary to use some photos. However, you show photos to students or junior high school students, or you could be showing photos to primary school children. So if you need to consider the target group and try to minimize the shock that you give to the target group that you show the photos to. But you need to show facts. However, you need to be considerate to the age and then nature of the group that you are showing the photos. As for education, as Dr. Kita said, to patients or the leprosy affected people live and also receive treatment in the same place. So the nurses, how they take care of leprosy affected people, they learn the way through OJT, on the job training. Thank you.
Two observations. One is with regard to stigma and discrimination of the leprosy, especially one of the example which we found that when we are trained the training of nurses in HIV/AIDS, where the stigma and discrimination was which was prevalent, and many of the nurses even are not willing to come forward to conduct the delivery. So when the intensive campaign and continuing education of nursing personnel took up, and we trained about 90,000 nurses under the HIV/AIDS Global Fund program. Now, whatever the knowledge, especially nurses, are coming out forward for taking care of the HIV and AIDS patients. So it very much the continuing education helps to remove once the knowledge is acquired, the stigma and discrimination can be eliminated. That is one point. Another is, if we involve the people living with HIV/AIDS, we found that in that whole project, when we called the people living with HIV patients for the training of nurses, one session was given to them for about 2 to 3 hours. They were interacting with them. That changed a lot of things to the nurses. So they were able to get more confidence, and seeing the patients and getting the feedback, some of the issues with regard to social issues are better understood. So therefore, at least in India, we don't have a specialization for leprosy, at least whatever my knowledge goes. But at least recently, we had in one of the nursing education committee meeting, we discussed, because we prepared 14 specialty areas for the nurses. So the issue of leprosy also came into the discussion boardroom, that whether there is a need to have a specialization program for the nurses. But there was still the discussion is continuing, and therefore at present what the decision was taken is, there is a need to prepare a module for the leprosy, so that this module should be implemented to all the nurses working in, because now the leprosy has been integrated in the general healthcare delivery system. So there is every scope of opportunity will be there, whether she is working in the rural area, or if she is working in the tertiary area, or if she is working in the sub-district area. So all the nurses need to be trained so that they will be involved in the identification of the cases, and referral of the cases is going to be improved. So therefore, we have now decided to have a 3 days module is being prepared. And 3 days module, one is giving this module for the nurses. Another is, we have taken an important policy decision is, during that 3 days training, person living with leprosy will be invited for the session, so that the trainees will be able to interact and understood the issues more effectively.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Yamaguchi, you have 2 minutes to wrap up. First of all, with regard to showing photos, during the classes, I myself talk about leprosy and I show photos. And when I read the reaction, when I listen to the reaction of the students, they say that it was good they showed me the photos. When we talk about leprosy, we hear a lot about discrimination and stigma, prejudice, but actually we didn't know what kind of condition the leprosy meant. But we were able to see the disabilities and after effect, and then we understood that they require self-care. So in terms of human rights restoration and in terms of treatment in both areas, I think they deepen their understanding through looking at the photos. As for the nurse training, nurse education, and they need a training in order to detect the symptoms at an early stage. I worked in Nepal for some time. In Nepal, at the regional health workers, we provide a few days course including diagnosis and rehabilitation subjects. And there is an institution to provide such training, and it attracts nurses around the country. So there may not be many institutions to provide such training, but if you can make steady progress in terms of educating nurses, I think they will be able to provide continuous care to leprosy-affected people. In Japan, non-Japanese nationals in Japan sometimes develop symptoms, and the cured persons sometimes relapse as well. Therefore, in my classes, I talk about symptoms and the treatment for the symptoms for the purpose of providing knowledge in accordance with the guidelines. Therefore, it's not that we provide no education on leprosy. The Japanese nurses may encounter leprosy-affected people, so focusing on the realistic scenario, we provide education. Thank you very much. This session, I think, showed the beginning of the major issue. So at the Foundation, Sasakawa Memorial Health Foundation, we would like to work with nurses. We work with leprosy-affected people so as to think about how people should live and how people should die. So it's about quality of life and quality of end of life. So in terms of thinking those important matters, activity of daily living, ADL and QOL, and end of life EOL, those three L's will be linked to leprosy, which starts with L. So including L for leprosy, we would like to continue to pursue 4 L's. We have to, unfortunately, finish this session in the interest of time, but I would like to thank everyone for your active participation. I would like to thank both panelists and audience. Thank you very much.